The film begins with an 18-year-old girl named Elliot, who is on a boat with her friends, Ro and Rosie. We learn that Elliot will be leaving the village in 3 weeks because she will be moving to the city to continue her studies. Elliot decides to celebrate with her friends before she leaves, so they go to a cafe where she meets a woman named Chelsea to buy some drugs. At the same time, Elliot's family is waiting for her. Her brother, Spencer, has baked a cake to celebrate her university acceptance. It becomes clear that Elliot's relationship with her family is not good, as she does not keep in touch with them regularly. Because of this, Elliot's father, Tom, talks to Spencer to reassure him, saying that Elliot will come home at the scheduled time. However, this does not happen because, by that time, Elliot has returned to her friends after buying the drugs. They then board the boat and head into the forest to camp. There, they boil the drugs Elliot bought in water and drink it. At night, they start a fire and gather around it. During this time, the effects of the drugs begin to show on Ro, and suddenly Ro starts dancing and singing in a funny way. Then, she goes for a walk in the forest, while Rosie falls asleep on the ground and starts hallucinating to the point of falling off a tree trunk she was sitting on. Elliot laughs at them and says she doesn't feel any effect from the drugs, but she is shocked when she suddenly sees a woman appear beside her. She asks the woman who she is and what brought her there. The woman tells Elliot that she is a version of herself when she turns 39. Elliot laughs, thinking this is just part of the drug effects, but the older version of Elliot shows her an injury on her body that happened when she was 9 years old. To convince her further, the older Elliot starts talking about many things that happened in her life, and at that moment, the younger Elliot cannot fully understand what is happening. Suddenly, the drug effects begin to take hold of her, and Elliot becomes heavier as the older version of herself gets closer, telling her that she is happy to see her. The older Elliot starts asking her about her future, if she will get married, have a family, and have children. She also asks her to tell her which company will be successful in the future so she can invest money in it now and become rich. The older Elliot advises her to not be overly excited and tells her that she will not get married or have a family because she will be too busy with her studies and the PhD she is working on. The younger Elliot feels disappointed when she hears this and asks the older Elliot for advice to improve her life. The older Elliot tells her that she should stay away from a guy named Chad, who she will meet in a few days. The younger Elliot asks who Chad is and how she will meet him, but the older Elliot refuses to tell her anything and insists that she listen to her advice. While they are talking, Elliot receives a call from her mother, but she refuses to answer. The older Elliot then tells her that she needs to improve her relationship with her family, especially her mother, because her mother loves her very much and is always under a lot of pressure. She adds that time passes quickly and she will grow older every day. The older Elliot then takes the younger Elliot's phone and records a message on it. The next day, the younger Elliot wakes up to the sound of Ro and Rosie, who are packing to leave. Afterward, Elliot goes back home and enters her room, where her mother tells her that her brother Spencer baked a cake for her and that they were all waiting for her to come back at the time she said. Elliot gives her mother the cake and tells her that she went on a trip with her friends to the forest, so she couldn't make it on time. Her mother accepts her apology and leaves the room to give her some space. Later, Elliot takes the tractor and drives it around her father's farm. After finishing, she goes to the lake and enters the water. However, she gets shocked when a person suddenly emerges from the water. She becomes even more frightened when the person introduces himself as Chad, saying he works for her father on the farm. Elliot remembers the warning from her older self, so she quickly exits the water and leaves, then sends a message to her older self. She sends a message to the older Elliot, telling her that she met Chad at the lake. The older Elliot tells her to stay away from him. The younger Elliot gets frightened and throws her phone into the water. Later, we see her in her room, and we learn that she took the phone out of the water and placed it in a bowl of rice to absorb the water and get the phone working again. However, Spencer sees her and tells her that she doesn't need to put the phone in the rice, as he thinks the phone is already waterproof. Elliot thanks Spencer, takes the phone out of the rice, and calls the older Elliot. When the older Elliot answers, she scolds her, asking who she is and what she wants. The older Elliot asks her to calm down, explaining that she never imagined she would contact her through the phone. The younger Elliot insists that she thought the older Elliot was just a hallucination caused by the drugs she took. The older Elliot asks if she followed her advice and got closer to her family, and she reflects that she should spend more time with her mother and talk to her. The younger Elliot then remembers that the older Elliot warned her to stay close to her mother because she might die soon, but the older Elliot reassures her, saying this won't happen and she just wants her to treat her mother better. They end the call, and the younger Elliot still doesn't fully grasp what is happening. However, she decides to follow the older Elliot's advice and gets closer to her family. She spends time with them and feels happy and content with their presence around her. The next day, Elliot goes to her brother Max and asks if she can join him when he goes to play golf. Max agrees, and while he's playing, Elliot asks him if he will open the business when she leaves. Max answers that he won't open it at all. Elliot feels disappointed, but she insists on improving her relationship with him because she realizes that her behavior made him feel like her presence didn't matter, as she had ignored her family for a long time. Later, Elliot goes to swim in the lake, but she gets nervous when she sees Chad coming to swim as well. She hides under the water so he won't see her, but she notices something strange beneath the surface. She gets scared, emerges from the water, and starts screaming. Chad comes over to calm her down and asks what happened. She tells him that she saw a snake in the water. Chad dives to check and comes back with a branch of a water plant, explaining that it wasn't a snake, but just a plant that looked like one due to the murky water. He jokes with her, telling her there are no snakes in the lake. He also mentions that he saw her earlier when she was riding her boat and asks if she will take him on a boat tour. Elliot refuses, saying she doesn't know him well enough and that the boat's engine is broken. Chad insists on fixing the engine, saying he worked with her father in the mechanic workshop for a long time. Elliot agrees, and they head to the boat. There, Chad asks her if she will help her father manage the farm. Elliot says she's not interested in working in agriculture. Chad asks her what she does want to do, and she admits she still doesn't know what she wants to work in. Chad is surprised by this and tells her he thought she rejected working on the farm because she had bigger ambitions. Before she can respond, Chad says he's fixed the engine and asks if they can go for a ride. Elliot refuses again, gets up, and walks away. That night, the younger Elliot calls the older Elliot again, asking why she warned her to stay away from Chad. She explains that he fixed the boat engine for her that day and that when she got closer to him, she found him polite and gentle. She expresses her concern about getting on the boat with him, and the older Elliot reassures her. Days pass, and we see that Elliot has started to get closer to her family. She regularly joins Max at the golf course, and one day, she asks him what made him upset with her. He tells her about the bad situations she created with him and how she ignored him for so long. Elliot apologizes for her bad behavior and neglect, promising not to repeat her mistakes. Max accepts her apology, and they begin to grow closer and talk more. When they return home, Elliot finds her mother sitting alone, and she decides to sit with her. Goes to sit with her brother Spencer, and they watch one of his favorite movies together. The next day, Elliot wakes up feeling a bit confused but goes to fix the tractor. It becomes clear that Elliot and Chad are impressing each other because he is a hard-working and diligent young man who works while studying. After breakfast, Max invites Chad to join him and Elliot at the golf course. There, Chad and Max talk about the possibility of selling the farm, and Elliot overhears. She quickly runs to her father and asks him if he is really selling the farm. Her father is surprised by her sudden interest in the farm and asks if she is upset about it. Elliot asks if he is selling it because she refused to help him manage it, and her father reassures her that it is not because of that. He explains that he received an attractive offer and accepted it. He thought she would be happy about it since she always says she wants to leave the village and move to the city. Elliot responds that while she did say that, she will never be happy if the farm is sold. Her father laughs and tells her that the sale process has already begun. Elliot feels upset, leaves him, and goes to her room. She sends a voice message to the older Elliot, telling her what happened and asking if there is any way to stop the sale of the farm. At the end of the message, she asks her to reply, but she finds that the older Elliot hasn't answered her calls. Elliot waits next to the phone, expecting a response, but it never comes. She goes to the farm, feeling sad, and while there, she sees Chad driving the tractor. She offers him a boat tour, and he agrees. During the trip, Elliot tells him that she is upset and sad because the farm is going to be sold. She explains that while she does want to live in the city, she had thought the farm would stay, and she could come back to spend her vacations there. Chad tells her that he understands how she feels and reassures her, explaining that life changes and she needs to adjust to the new situation. He adds that people don't realize the value of something until it's gone. Elliot is moved by his words and thanks him for comforting her. The next day, Elliot sits with her mother, who tells her about her childhood. She learns that her mother worked very hard to raise her, especially compared to her siblings. Her mother says that Elliot was very mischievous and smart, and she would only fall asleep if her mother sang a particular song to her. One night, her mother recalls singing the song for 45 minutes because Elliot wouldn't sleep until she did. Elliot feels guilty for complaining to the older Elliot in the past, saying that her mother talks too much, even though her mother endured so much for her. She apologizes to her mother for all the times she was distant from her and promises to always be there for her. The next day, Elliot takes Chad on a boat ride and they go on a tour around the lake. Elliot is very happy and enjoys her time with Chad. Suddenly, the boat's motor falls into the water and Chad laughs but reassures her, saying that his father's workshop has many motors and he can bring her one from there. Then the weather changes and it starts raining, so they rush to Chad's house to change clothes. They sit together in front of the fire, talking, and Elliot shares her thoughts about the university she'll be attending. Elliot is overjoyed by the news and it's clear that Chad is also happy about their future studies together. There's a moment of mutual admiration between them and it's obvious they have feelings for each other, although neither of them says it. Afterward, Chad drives Elliot back home, but before they arrive, she asks him to turn around because she doesn't want anyone in her family to see them together. After Chad leaves, Elliot is shocked to find the older Elliot waiting for her. She smiles and asks where she's been hiding all this time. The older Elliot explains that she was in a retreat for contemplation, and when she returned, she found. The younger Elliot sends a message to the older Elliot, explaining that she followed all the advice she had given her. She shares that she has grown closer to her family and felt immense happiness in doing so. However, she admits that she tried to stay away from Chad but couldn't because she has grown fond of him and started to love him. She tells the older Elliot that she tried to find a flaw in him to justify keeping her distance, but she was surprised to realize that he is a perfect young man that any girl would want. She asks the older Elliot for the reason she advised her to stay away from him, especially since she can no longer imagine her life without him. The older Elliot then tells her that Chad is going to die, and this will be a very difficult experience for her. This is why she warned her to stay away from him. At this point, deep sadness appears on the younger Elliot's face, but she tells the older Elliot that she will continue her relationship with Chad and allow herself to love him even more. Suddenly, Chad appears with the younger Elliot's t-shirt, which she had forgotten at his house. The younger Elliot is shocked to see Chad greeting the older Elliot, as she had never imagined he could see her as she does. Chad introduces her to the older Elliot as his aunt, and the older Elliot is deeply moved by seeing Chad. She tells him that she is very happy to have met him and gets closer to him. As she is about to say goodbye, she leaves him with the younger Elliot and walks away, crying. The younger Elliot is deeply affected, and tears well up in her eyes. Chad asks if she is okay, and she manages to calm herself and assures him she is fine. At this moment, the younger Elliot confesses her love to Chad, and he tells her that he loves her too and can't live without her. It's clear that they are all happy together. One day, the older Elliot sends a message to the younger Elliot, telling her that this will be her last message and that she will disappear from her life forever. The older Elliot admits that she was right when she advised her to live her life with Chad and asks her to live her days with him, because no matter what happens, these will be the happiest days of her life. The younger Elliot continues with her life, spending time with her family, and she decides to embrace her love for Chad no matter what happens. Later, we see her riding the boat in the lake, saying goodbye to the lake as they are about to move to the city. Elliot is extremely happy and at peace, having decided to live her life with the person she loves, regardless of what the future holds. And the film ends with that beautiful moment where Elliot decides to live in the present with the person she loves, leaving behind any fears about the future. The ending highlights the hope and happiness she found in her relationship with Chad and with her family, reflecting a message about the importance of love and true feelings in a person's life, no matter the challenges. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content. Your support means a lot to us. See you in the next summary.